Breaking down a pair of prospects for the 49ers 2025 NFL Draft, pass rushers, Mike Green and Shemar Stewart. Very different guys. They get to quarterback very different ways. They're shaped very different, but play the same position probably if they were drafted by the San Francisco 49ers. Are they future 49ers? Are they worth the 11th pick in the NFL Draft? All that more coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love and appreciate all the everydayers out there. Make sure you swing by and hit the thumbs up on YouTube. Let us know that you are here. And if you're new to the program, welcome. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this podcast. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play just $5. All right, we're going to start with a couple guys who were at the Senior Bowl this week. So got a little bit of extra tape. Got to watch both these guys at the Senior Bowl. I think they both played extremely well and looked good in reps at the Senior Bowl, which probably helps their draft stock. And maybe nobody helped their draft stock more this week, to be honest with you, than Mike Green, the edge rusher out of Marshall, because Shemar Stewart, Texas A&M, he got to see a lot of big-time competition. Mike Green, not as much. When you're not playing for a Power 4 school and when you're not going up against some of the SEC offensive linemen all day long, it gets a little bit more difficult and maybe allows people to be more skeptical of the statistics and the production you have, even at a college like Marshall, who's got a good program and sent guys to the league, right? But I think it was a pretty big week for Mike Green at the Senior Bowl, and he did show out there. But when you put on the tape of Mike Green, the pass rusher out of Marshall, Croc, 6'3", 250 pounds is what he weighed in at the Senior Bowl, which another couple of markers that he needed to hit, which he was over 6'3", and he was 251 pounds, which was huge for him at the Senior Bowl. What'd you say when you put on the Mike Green tape from Marshall, the Thundering Herd?
You know, the thing that really got me excited, especially watching him at the Senior Bowl, the array of pass rush moves that he tried to utilize during the one-on-one periods. Now, did it work every time? No, but it at least showed that he has a process. He is thinking, all right, I'm going to have a pass rush plan, and then what's my secondary move? So watching him use those, whether it was a spin, whether it was a one-arm stab, I think everyone saw the bull rush when he plowed through the Oregon tackle off the right side of the offensive line, just, bullied him. I don't think he bullied many other people. There was another bull rush in there. So I was trying to figure out, is he like a speed guy? Is he a speed to power guy? Or is he more finesse and just got a couple of guys slipping? You go and you watch the Ohio State film. Talked about not having a lot of, big time prospects that he's playing against. But he did play against Ohio State. And I wanted to see, what did that look like, watching him go up against whether it's Simmons, who, I really like the left tackle for Ohio State, or working off of the right side of the line for Ohio State. And I'll tell you what was the most disappointing to see out of all of that. It was when he got washed down the line in the run play by a tight end. And, those things can't happen, right? Could you imagine, what does it look like when Nick Bosa, I get it, Nick Bosa, second overall pick in the NFL draft, but we're talking about pick 11 right now. Nick Bosa, he destroys tight ends. Heck, one of the big reasons why 49er fans were really upset with Kyle Shanahan for a while was because he had a tight end try to guard Hassan Reddick and ended up, ruining Brock Purdy's elbow for the conference championship game. So watching a tight end wash you down, it made me a little skeptical. Now, again, that's one rep right there. But really for the entirety of the Ohio State game, where you are playing against, better tackles, better guards, the motor was there. I thought the effort was really good. But he was kind of non-existent, especially in the pass game, really, and in the run game as well for a majority of that game. So the Senior Bowl, that's awesome. I think he showed a lot of really good stuff. But I do think the highlight of what I've seen so far, limited film, might I add, had to be probably the bull rush over the Oregon tackle that got a lot of people excited.
Yeah, he got Connerly, went straight through his chest and put him on his back. One of the big highlights of the Senior Bowl week there from Mike Green. I thought he was really good against Ohio State. I think he got home multiple times. He was using all of his pass rush repertoire. You know, he's dipping and he's ripping and using a spin move. And if I'm not mistaken, he had, I think, 2 sacks in that game too. And yeah, and so you know, he didn't win every rep in that game, but he consistently. Number one is motor for him. Is he consistently impacts the game. He consistently pressures the opposing quarterbacks. In fact, 17.5 sacks. He led the country in sacks. But what I liked about him, and I know you noticed the one rep against the tight end, and there are times when he will get engulfed. He'll get a little bit high. And again, he's undersized for a pure hand in the dirt defensive end. He's 6'3", 251, and that was a big win for him even to be 251 pounds because he was mostly a stand-up type rusher at Marshall. But most of the time, if there's a tight end over him, he'll wreck that tight end. And he is not only a good pass rusher, he's not just some like finesse speed pass rusher either. He brings power to the table, and he's as good a run defender as he is a pass rusher. And he's the only guy I think in the country that had elite PFF grades as a pass rusher and as a run defender. He was 90 plus in his PFF grades, both versus the run and versus the pass this past year. So I love the way he plays. He's one of my favorite guys I've seen so far because he's such an animal, and he can win in a lot of different ways, and he can win with some power, and he can get skinny and shoot a gap. He can penetrate. He can go around you. He can go through you, and he shows so many different ways to win, and he is relentless. And it's one of the things that absolutely will translate to the NFL. Now, his one big weakness is the thing you saw, and it was a tight end in that case. I've seen some big tackles get their hands on him and are able to engulf him a little bit because he is 6'3", 251, and who knows how much he weighed in college. He might have been, I'm sure he was lighter and gained some weight since the season started because I'm sure that's exactly what his agent wanted him to do. We'll see what he turns in at the combine and how he runs, which is the last little bit. But will he be a fit for the 49ers to draft as high as number 11? Just because of the pure size, or are they going to be looking for someone who's 270, 280 pounds as a defensive lineman if you're going to draft him that high? That would be the big question I have, is the fit for the 49ers. But I had to have no problem taking him that high because I think he's going to be one of, if not the best pass rushers from this class. And if he goes to the combine and runs really well, one thing he doesn't have is super long arms. If he had longer arms and then went to the combine and ran really well, I would say he'd probably be the second defensive player or defensive lineman off the board after Abdul Carter early in round 1. But
what does Senior Bowl have his arms at? Did they measure his arms?
Yeah, 32 and a quarter, I think it was. So yeah, it's on the lower end. And the 49ers already have kind of Nick Bosa is already kind of a stubby rusher for being like one of the elite guys. If you compare him to Myles Garrett and TJ Watt and all the big time pass rushers in the NFL, basically
Max Crosby.
Yeah, Max Crosby. They all have crazy long arms and length, and they're 6'4", 6'5". Nick Bosa doesn't have that. Nick Bosa, I think, was 6'3.5", 260 pounds, and I think 33 flat inch arms or something like that, which is not like wowing typical length and size for the elite of the elite rushers in the NFL. He wins because he has technique and he has motor and he has all these things, and he has enough length and enough size to operate and be a stud player. And Mike Green's even smaller than Nick Bosa is. So as a full-time end, he might not be a perfect fit for the 49ers. He's a good run defender. He's a fantastic run defender. I have no problem with him being out there. If Leonard Floyd can do it, Mike Green can do it. Will the 49ers draft him at 11? I would probably bet against it, even though I like Mike Green quite a lot. I think he's going to be a good pass rusher, and I think he's already day one the best pass rusher right now in this draft class, even better than Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter just has a few more tools.
Do you have an NFL comparison for him?
That's a pretty hard one. I was trying to think of that, and I couldn't really think of one because he doesn't win. He's not like Von Miller where he just wins with speed, even though he has speed and he has burst. He doesn't win like with just pure speed to power all the time, even though he shows power. He's just relentless. I would say probably the closest thing is Will Anderson from a couple of years ago, because Will Anderson wasn't like a a freak of freaks, but he was like really good, and he wins with smarts, he wins with motor, he wins with a lot of different pass rush moves, but doesn't really win in one way all the time. And that's how Mike Green is. Did anybody pop into your head watching him?
Nah, I mean, you try to come up with a comparison, not to say that this is what this guy will be, but just so that our audience can kind of paint a picture of what this guy may look like in a 49 uniform, right? Like just from a physical standpoint or from a movement skill standpoint. And now I was kind of drawing a blank as well.
Yeah.
You want to go when you see a guy like that that's not the the tallest or the longest guy. You want to think like, oh, okay, a D Ford or like you said, like a Von Miller.
Mhm.
But I think some of what those guys had was just like a little bit more freakish from a athleticism standpoint.
I think D Ford is good from a height, weight, speed. I think Mike Green is a little nastier than D Ford was. D Ford was still a little bit of a finesse, outside stand-up type of a rusher. Mike Green brings a little more nasty, I think, to the table. Mike Green, by the way, former wide receiver that bulked up to play off-ball linebacker, then transferred to be a full-time edge at Marshall. So that's how he ended up at Marshall. So that's why if you see there's a lot of athleticism in him. Yeah, he used to be a wide receiver and bulked up from there. Reminds me of I think I've dropped that comp for him before with DeMarcus Ware, who was a former wide receiver and was like a late bloomer at Troy and then ended up being a superstar pass rusher. He's also has a wrestling background too, which is why he's wins with leverage and and it looks like he plays bigger than he is, Mike Green. So a lot to like about Mike Green. Is he a fit at 11 for the 49ers? I like him a lot. I think he will go in that early to mid first round range, probably 10 to 15 overall. Will he go to the San Francisco 49ers? He'll probably end up going to a team that plays a little bit more of an odd front, if I had to guess. Next, Croc. Let's talk.
Robert, I was looking at Mike Green. You said he was a receiver. I'm trying to find some stuff of him coming out of college. I mean, out of high school, but he was a 3-star receiver. So
okay,
I mean that's a pretty talented guy. I'm like, well, how big was he as a receiver coming out?
Yeah, and when did they realize, oh man, we're gonna have to put you on defense? You're getting too big, dude. And then he ended up transferring. I can't remember. Did he go to West Virginia or something like that? I can't remember what school he was at first, and then transferred to go to Marshall to play full-time edge.
Gotcha. Okay.
I don't remember what school.
He was listed at 6'4", 215 pounds.
Okay.
And it looks like he was committed to he went to Virginia.
Virginia, that's what it was. Okay. Yeah. Virginia first, then ended up at Marshall. Next, let's talk Shemar Stewart, defensive end out of Texas A&M. There are some people who are big-time fans of Shemar Stewart. Let's put on the tape and see what we think about Shemar Stewart. Is he a fit for the San Francisco 49ers in round 1? Next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And I'm getting my tabs mixed up here. FanDuel, it is the big game this week. And you know that when Super Bowl 59 is here, then that means FanDuel is going to have tons of ways to play and a million Super Bowl props. One game, 2 teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on all of that action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's just the icing on the cake. So download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. All right, up next, we got Shemar Stewart. Very different shaped guy than Mike Green. He is the prototype. 6'5", 281 pounds at the Senior Bowl, 34-inch arms. He's the guy that you want to get off the bus first. He looks the part, and at times he plays the part, Croc. When you put on the Texas A&M tape and watch Shemar Stewart, what did you see?
Well, I saw a guy that was quick off the ball when he wanted to be. All right. it almost felt like I talked about with Green, Mike Green having a pass rush plan. Shemar Stewart, I'm not sure he did. And when he was trying to read it, like, is it a run? Is it a pass? He was very like slow playing it. And I felt like there wasn't much after that. But when it was an obvious passing situation or if it was a running situation, I felt like that was when you saw him at his best. I mean, he was quick off the ball. He would use the long arms, stab guys, knock them back. He could use a bull rush. He got skinny in between holes. Watching him disengage, get off blocks in the run game, I thought he did that very well. Then another high motor guy as well. We talked about Green having a high motor. I thought Stewart, the high motor, showed up time and time again. So I wasn't aware that he was 6'5", but sometimes when you saw him kind of put his head into the offensive lineman's chest, then extend those arms, you see how the length just really helps a guy, especially in the interior. Now, the difference between him and Mike Green, like Mike Green, he wasn't an edge / stand-up outside linebacker rusher. Stewart was definitely he was lined up in the zero most of the time. So it's like, is he a nose or will he be more of a 3? But watching him operate in there, he felt like more of a 49er player. Like he not quite DeForest Buckner or Eric Armstead in the sense of what they look like maybe coming out of Oregon, but more of that realm of a guy where he's kind of if it was a 3-4, he would be a 3-4 end. But then if he's in the 4-3, then he would probably be more in the 3 tech, even though, again, at Texas A&M, they lined him up in the 0 a lot. So, I liked both facets of his game. It was just, can he figure out a way to be more productive when he's still figuring out if it's a run or a pass? Because I thought he was kind of slow played that a little too much.
I talked about how they get to the quarterback in very different ways. And to simplify it even further, Mike Green gets the quarterback by getting there. Shemar Stewart doesn't. He doesn't get there, Croc. I have a big problem with Shemar Stewart and all of the ability, the 6'5", 280. He's athletic at 6'5", 280. You could move him around. I watched him versus LSU. I watched him versus a guy we've already done in Membo at Missouri. And he's, as a pass rusher, he's losing these battles. He just doesn't get to the quarterback. And it's frustrating because he doesn't get to the quarterback, even though he wins a lot initially because he has natural get off. He has a nice burst. He's got all this length, and then he gets to the top of his rush, and that's the end. And it's over. And you know what I see happens a lot with him, and I don't know if it's, biomechanically, it's ankle flexion or whatever it is, but he'll get to the top of his rush and his feet will just slip out from underneath him. Like he can't turn the corner. You know what I mean? And so even though at times he's actually really good against the run, and so at least you have that. He reminds me of Michael Williams in that regard, where I think you're going to get something out of him, even if he's not the pass rusher that you hope you're drafting in the first round. But he needs to win a lot more for me to be comfortable drafting him as high as he is. He reminds me of one of those players that, the Buffalo Bills end up drafting every year, late first round. There's like the Justin Tryons of the world. Remember Owe from that the Baltimore Ravens drafted a couple of years ago. All those guys that have the height, weight, speed, and just there's something missing in their game, and teams at the end of round one just take a shot on them to try to see what they can develop and see if they can turn him into a big-time player. That's kind of what Shemar Stewart reminds me of. So he's more of a late first-round guy to me. I don't think I would touch him at pick number 11, even though he's got a ton of athletic ability. And he'll show some speed to power, some bull rush at times. And he's better against the run, and he'll be able to fire off and use his long arms and control an offensive lineman and play the run. But he just can't get to the quarterback at all. There's no plan. He can't turn the corner. He can't disengage once he gets there at the top of his rush. And that's a big problem for me. And it's the exact opposite with Mike Green. And to be honest with you, Mike Green's such a good run defender too. Even though Shemar Stewart's 6'5", 280, he's not like a better run defender than Mike Green, even though he's got a lot more size and there's a lot more potential for him to be better in that regard. You don't see him get engulfed, even though it's still rare for Mike Green. It's one of the negatives that you do see show up occasionally on tape, and it might be something that happens more in the NFL, especially if you ask it's going to be like more of a traditional end. So I wouldn't be shocked if the 49ers like Shemar Stewart a lot, and there's a lot to work with there, but I'm not drafting him expecting that there's going to be some big breakout as a pass rusher, because it's just non-existent right now. He can't get home. And even though he actually showed some nice reps at the Senior Bowl in those one-on-ones, You think maybe there's a little bit of something there. Maybe is it all technique that he's lacking? But when I see his feet slip out from under him when he's trying to turn the corner and get around offensive tackles, that really worries me because it tells me biomechanically he's not going to be able to get there. And then that's why I've seen comparisons to Jadeveon Clowney. He doesn't have Clowney level explosiveness and power, but he has Clowney's ability to not turn. So I could see that comparison.
Where is he projected to go right now in mock drafts?
He mid first round.
I wonder if like a scheme like the 49ers running a wide 9 where they're more, hey, get upfield, penetrate right now, if that may help him. Because again, a lot of it, I felt like where he wasn't being productive was like he'd pop straight up sometimes and then kind of read and then try to get into something and didn't quite work. But again, when I saw him at his best, it was just boom, firing off the ball, using the long arms, being able to pull guys through, get skinny in holes. But it was very obvious that he knew, like, oh, this is a passing situation where I can just fire off the ball. I can try to get skinny. I can use their long arms as opposed to trying to disengage in the run. So 49ers, I know a big thing with them is, hey, why 9? Let's get upfield right now. Would a scheme like that help him?
I think it would. I think, and especially having that get off, because that's the big thing with Chris Kasurek, right? GTFO, get the bleep off, right? They want off defensive linemen that can fire off of the ball, and Shemar Stewart has that. So if you put him in the wide 9, put him out there, point him at the quarterback, and just let him explode out of his stance and get after it, then maybe that's the best type of scheme for him. So I could see the 49ers liking Shemar Stewart. 11 is just really rich for me because he's not productive enough and can't get home and get sacks. And I get you need a guy that can defend the run along the defensive line as well. But if you're going to draft a guy in the top 15 of the NFL draft on the defensive line, he better be able to get to the quarterback. And Shemar Stewart just doesn't enough. And in fact, I'd probably bet money on Mykel Williams figuring it out. If you're gonna draft a toolsy defensive lineman that you're hoping is going to learn on the fly and become that guy, I would probably put Stewart behind Mykel Williams as well. And Williams is one of those guys where I said he would scare the crap out of me. He's going to get a GM fired because he looks the part. He's got these 35-inch arms and he's athletic, but he doesn't win enough as a pass rusher. Shemar Stewart gives me very, very similar vibes. Next, Croc. We've got to stack these two players, Mike Green and Shemar Stewart, in our Locked On 49ers official big board. And look, we can move guys around, but our initial rankings here, as we look at these prospects and we start to rank these guys, we got to put these two guys on the list. And I want to talk about the draft picks the 49ers have and how much value they have in these picks, where the 49ers might be able to move around. So maybe someone like Shemar Stewart or Mike Green is the best player available when the 49ers are selecting. Can they move up? Can they move down? Where can they move around in the NFL draft now that we've seen some comp picks out there as projected as well? Next. Today's show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What do you want for your 2025 story? Your 2025 story. What do you want that to be? Every January brings a new chapter, 365 blank pages waiting for you to fill. If there's a part of your life that you want to rewrite or a plot twist you've been craving, why wait? Life isn't about fleeting resolutions. It's about taking control and becoming the author of your own story. Think of therapy as your personal editor, helping you craft the life you deserve. It's not just for crisis situations. Therapy can help you develop healthier coping strategies, improve your relationships, and empower you to be the best version of yourself. Can help you in your career. Whether you're facing a challenge or just looking for personal growth, therapy is a powerful tool to help you guide your journey. Whether it's learning how to set boundaries or tackling stress in a new way, therapy can help you develop skills that are better for tomorrow. So write your story with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today. Get 10% off your first month. Again, that's betterhelp.com/lockedon today and get started with 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, we got Mike Green. We got Shemar Stewart. I love Mike Green. I don't know if he's going to be the Niners pick at 11. Shemar Stewart, I don't think he's worthy of the 11 pick, but I think these guys are both like right in there with that group of players that we've already looked at. So right now, our big board just consisting of the players we've done deep dives on and we've done episodes here on the podcast of Croc. This is the order of the top 8 prospects we have. We have Josh Simmons, offensive tackle from Ohio State 1. Will Campbell, offensive tackle from LSU 2. We got Walter Nolan, defensive tackle from Ole Miss 3. Then there's James Pierce, edge rusher out of Tennessee 4. Armand Membo, offensive lineman out of Missouri 5. Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle out of Texas 6. Michael Williams, Georgia 7. Jalen Walker, edge rusher, linebacker out of Georgia at number 8. And those guys are all very tight, like basically 3 through 8 are super tight. I think the 2 guys we like the most are Simmons and Campbell. Is that correct? Do I have that correct?
Yep, and followed by Nolan. So
yeah, followed by Walter Nolan,
I really like top 3.
Which is funny because he was the second round pick in the mock draft that we were looking at, and we liked him better than the first round guy projected in Armand Membo. So Mike Green and Shemar Stewart, when you filter those 2 guys in, where would you put them in that mix?
I think we could probably, just listening to the way that you talked about Mike Green and what you were seeing, and then you talk about the production that goes with it, he may have to go in there probably ahead of Pierce. The biggest thing is just that, like the length or lack of length, right? Where Pierce is, the more physically imposing guy, but is he the better football player?
Right.
And it sounds like Mike Green maybe translates more to the NFL right now than Pierce. So I would have Pierce right behind Nolan.
Okay. So Mike Green in between Nolan and Pierce?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. That's exactly how I would have it. Yep. And James Pierce, there's a lot to like. Mike Green wins in more ways and shows that power. And James Pierce, I would have a lot higher if he just showed a little bit more speed to power on tape. And by the way, if you think we're missing on some of these prospects and you have a cut up of James Pierce showing speed to power, send it our way, right? And so we would love to see it. And I haven't seen every game of every one of these prospects. Shemar Stewart, I like
and we
him.
don't watch highlights too, so that should be.
It's not about highlights. Although in some cases it's like, okay, show me a highlight just to see, like, show me that it exists. Because if a guy can do it once, he can do it twice, right? But I can't offhand. I can't remember right now with James Pierce winning really many reps off of speed to power, which was frustrating because he's got that length and he's got that speed. Shemar Stewart, I'd probably put him at the end of the list, to be honest with you. I'd put him after Michael Williams. I'd probably put him after Jalen Walker. What do you think?
I feel like he may be ahead of Walker.
Ahead of Walker. Yeah, you didn't like Walker. I liked Walker more than you. Walker was tough because you had to watch so many reps just to see a pure pass rush rep. But when he did rush the passer, he won more often than his teammate Williams and guys like Shemar Stewart. Let's see where we're at. There we are. Okay, I'm okay with that.
That may be a little projecting with me though with Stewart, because again I like when obvious passing situations or situations where he was confident with what he was getting, I just saw a different version of him as opposed to the version of him that had to play more honest.
And that might have been why he had a nice little week at the Senior Bowl, because you can just pin your ears back and go, and you're just battling the guy in front of you. You don't have to worry about what the offense is doing, if they're running, if they're passing, whatever. It's a one-on-one rep, and you can just go after it. The other guys we don't have on the list, Croc, are Malachi Starks, Tyler Warren, and Ashton Genty, the non-linemen on the list. Where do they rank for you, where you would be like, okay, I'm going to put this guy in here, I'm going to put this guy in there? Would you put him ahead of any of the linemen? Would you put him just after all of the linemen?
Ooh, okay. So Genty's intriguing just because of how strong of a runner he is. And you think about some outside zone stuff and how, that fits with the Kyle Shanahan offense. How good of a pass catcher out the backfield is he to give him that extra kind of bump? That's the part I still have to see. And then just how he won. I mean, he would get so many carries to be able to break off that big run. And if you ask colleges, college backs around the league, hey man, you're going to get 32 carries this game. They're probably like, hell yeah, because I'm only getting like 12 here, less opportunities to spring off some of those big runs. Mm-hmm. Like if the running backs from Ohio State had the same amount of carries as Genty, what would that look like? They had 2 running backs, 30 two, Henderson and number 1, Judkins. What's his name?
Judkins. Yeah.
Judkins. Those guys, they probably be like, hell yeah, have me in an offense where I can get 32 carries. Now, would they hold up? That would be the other thing. But just watching those guys, I wonder if you would come away with them being better, because I felt like they were more explosive runners.
I think Henderson is really explosive and a pretty tantalizing prospect himself. But man, just the complete package that Genty is. I think you're disrespecting Genty a little bit, but I'm still not touching it. So like he's last for me. If we're talking about first round guys, he's at the bottom still because he's a running back, but he's still a good running back. Like I still like running backs. They're fun to watch, but I think he's got a lot of everything.
All right, so we got him back. Now Warren was the intriguing one because I think he's supposed to be looked at as like maybe like a TJ Hawkinson, maybe.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a good comp for him. I've seen that comp before out there, kind of a all complete tight end. Yeah.
I just would like to see how he just wins straight up a little bit more often, because everything was so schemed up for him to free him up.
Are you putting Tyler Warren, the tight end, in front of Jalen Walker, Shemar Stewart, or after those guys?
I think in front of those guys. I still think he's a better NFL prospect.
Okay. All right. And
those guys feel more like late first round picks or early second round, like day 2, as opposed to Warren. I mean, he is a first round pick, and I could see him like I'd be surprised if he gets past pick 17.
Okay. So this is the working list we have so far. We got Josh Simmons, Will Campbell, Walter Nolan, Mike Green, James Pierce, Armand Membo, Kelvin Banks, Michael Williams. I'm putting Malachi Starks in front of Tyler Warren, even though you are surprisingly not as high on Starks as I thought you might be, because I thought he was smooth. Then Shemar Stewart, then Jalen Walker, then Ashton Genty. That's our list so far.
I don't think it's that. I don't think it's that I'm not high on him. It's just when I think of pick 11, I'm thinking the safety better look like Minka Fitzpatrick and Derwin James, and he doesn't. So like that's, if the 49ers were picking pick 24, my view on him may be a lot different.
I feel you on that. Let us know what you think at BD Peacock, at Crocky209. I do have the 49ers official full list of draft picks here. Well, it's not official yet because the league hasn't announced the comp picks, but these are the projected comp picks. The 49ers would have 4 picks in the first 3 rounds. They would have pick 99 third round comp pick coming their way, a couple of 4th round comp picks as well. I want to talk about the values for each of these picks on a future episode, where the 49ers could go in the NFL draft if they wanted to trade up in round 1, or maybe if they wanted to go down in round 1 and maybe come back up in round 2 to get 2 of these guys we've already talked about potentially, and what that might look like, what it would take, and what the 49ers have as far as trade bait in case they wanted to say, go trade for Myles Garrett or something like that as well. Just throwing that name out there. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen at BD Peacock, at Crocky209. You can always drop a comment on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe while you're there. Croc and I back tomorrow right here. We'll make our official predictions tomorrow for Super Bowl 59 as well. Right here. Locked On 49ers.